Hey everyone! ChatGPT Taylor aka Taylor here. Welcome back to the channel. Today will be a continuation of the Disventure Camp Top 5 series. This series counts down my top 5 lists of certain topics related to Disventure Camp. Last time, I talked about 5 moves made by Disventure Camp characters that I didn't think were ideal. This video will look at something different. If there are any ideas for this series that you would like to see me play out, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. And with that, let's get started. Before I begin, make sure to like and subscribe if this video is to your liking, and make sure to comment down below if there's anything that you would like to see going forward. Today's topic is something not exclusively related to Disventure Camp, but it's definitely related. The topic is 5 things I think total drama fan shows should avoid. There are quite a few fan shows based off of total drama and loosely Survivor. Examples include Total Drama Next Generation, Odyssey Del Drama, and of course, Disventure Camp. It's clear that Total Drama and Survivor have inspired the community to try their hand at creating their own shows with a similar format. And I'm no different. I thought about what I would want to see if I were to create my own total drama-based show. That being said, this also got me to think about what I wouldn't want to see in my own fan season. Obviously, everyone has their own opinions regarding things that they wouldn't want to see in fan seasons. Whether it's boring characters or repulsing plot points, everyone has something that would make them turn away from a fan season if it's included. Therefore, this video will have me go over the top 5 things that I think total drama fan seasons should avoid when writing. Before I begin, there are 2 things that I want to clarify. Firstly, I'm not saying that the things I'm going to list are objectively bad. These are solely my opinions, and I'm sure that there's someone out there who will disagree with my list. That's okay. I encourage you to have a civil discussion in the comments regarding your thoughts on my opinions. Secondly, if a showrunner does include any of the things on this list in their show, that doesn't mean that their show is badly written. I know how hard it can be to write a compelling fan season, and it's not always easy to avoid including these things into their season. So please don't take this video as an attack on any show in particular, because that's not what this video is intended for. And with that, let's get started. The first thing that I think fan seasons should avoid is an improper balance between strategy and story. In my opinion, it's important to have a good balance between the inclusion of strategy and the inclusion of a good story. To me, leaning too much in either direction can result in a frustrating product. Don't get me wrong, I will gladly appreciate an incredible story or incredible strategic gameplay. However, I feel like having a good combination of both would be ideal for this kind of show, especially if the two of them can be intertwined. In my experience, the risk that someone takes when leaning completely into a strategy-guided season is the possibility of the season losing its entertainment value. At the end of the day, these kinds of shows are supposed to be a type of reality show, which is a genre known for having copious amounts of drama. In the absence of a story, there is very little room for drama. And if a reality show loses all its drama, the reason for a strong section of the audience to continue watching the show is removed. Viewers generally want to feel invested in the show's participants, usually through their motivations, personalities, and actions, all of which play into the story of the season. For example, part of the reason why there's a vocal section of the community who doesn't like Dan is because of his lack of impactful involvement and story. His lack of a story makes it so difficult for some viewers to connect with him that his strategic gameplay is not enough to make this section like him. This is an example of how leaning too much into strategy may not be ideal. On the flip side, the risk that someone takes with leaning completely into a story-guided season is the possibility of the competitive aspect of the season becoming secondary to the drama. At the end of the day, these reality competition shows are by definition a competition. Strategy should play some sort of role in guiding the season, or else there's a risk of alienating the game-savvy members of the fanbase. Some viewers love the intricate strategy involved in the competitors' decision-making processes, and get frustrated when certain competitors aren't making ideal moves. For example, look at Jake. Part of the reason why there's a vocal section of the community who doesn't like him is because his story tended to override his opportunity to make good strategic decisions. His emotionality over rationality is what made it so difficult for some viewers to connect with him that his story is not enough to make this section like him. This is an example of how leaning too much into a good story may not be ideal. Overall, I just feel like it's important to have a good balance. A good balance leaves room for the season's most impactful events to be entertaining, yet sensible, pleasing the section of the fanbase that is here for the well-thought-out storyline, as well as the section of the fanbase that is here for savvy gameplay. And if I were to ever make my own fan season one day, I hope that I will be able to find this balance in the creation of the show, staving off common pitfalls of a poor story and non-deliberate poor strategy. And these pitfalls both play a role in the next item on this list. The second thing that I think fan seasons should avoid is unintentionally having their characters make contradictory actions. What I mean is that I don't like it when a character acts differently from how they're intended to act, when the goal is not for them to make a heel turn in their behavior. For example, I don't mind if a good character suddenly becomes a villain if there are previous signs that they are going to make this change. However, if a character is known for being strategically savvy and is aware of the importance of voting correctly, then having them suddenly cast a stray vote for no meaningful reason is something that I wouldn't put into my own fan season. To me, the risk of having characters act contradictory to who they are, without the intention of having this action be a part of that character's story arc, is that some viewers may label that character as being inconsistent and some viewers may see that action as having no meaningful reason for it to occur. For those in the fanbase who love a good story, having a character unintentionally being painted as inconsistent can be a bit confusing to follow. And for those in the fanbase who love strategy and logical gameplay, having a game-savvy character make a questionable move seemingly out of nowhere may frustrate these viewers. For example, James was painted in Season 2 as being a strategically savvy player. However, in Episode 7 he voted for Ali while the rest of his alliance voted for Tess. I'm not clear on what James's goal was with this decision, considering how it risks making an unnecessary enemy out of Ali, and it's never addressed by anyone later on in the season. My current assumption is that it was done purely to add suspense to the elimination ceremony. And even though it accomplished its goal, it did raise a few questions regarding James's character and strategy that left me a bit confused after the ceremony. These questions could have been avoided had James just voted for Tess, or if he later explained that he was planning to frame Lake, Rosa, or Rhea by throwing his vote. Of course, I can only speak from my own experiences, and I'm not claiming them as fact. I'm just stating my perspective on the situation. In general, incredible fan seasons do a great job at pulling in their viewers and immersing them in the world of the show. And I just feel like having a character suddenly perform an out-of-character action risks pushing the viewers back into reality and potentially lessening the overall enjoyment of the show. Again, I'm not saying that a show is horrible if it includes this. I'm just saying that I think it's not an ideal decision. And if I were to make my own fan season in the future, I would try my absolute hardest not to do something like this if I can avoid it. But for the next item on this list, I hope to avoid it at all costs if I do end up making a fan season. The third thing that I think fan seasons should avoid is reducing characters to one specific concept. The reason why I feel like this should be avoided is because eventually, one-note characters will start to get old. Even if the one quality that the character has is good or entertaining, eventually people are going to want to see more. The same is true in real life. You might have a food that you love to eat, but if you eat that food every day for every single meal for 6 months straight, chances are that you're going to get tired of it. It's okay to have a character that is comic relief, but if they tell the same joke over and over and over again, it's going to get old. For example, part of the reason why Yul has a strong fanbase from Disventure Camp All-Stars despite his unhinged comments is because his unhinged comments were generally a source of comedy throughout the first part of the season. However, I feel like the longer that Yul stayed in the competition, the more his role was reduced to being just an abusive boyfriend. I'm not saying that the plot of him being an abusive boyfriend shouldn't have been included. This plot did serve its purpose of having Gret finally stand up for herself and realizing that Gabby was her one true friend all along, which I really liked. But what I am saying is that I wish Yul showed more than just his abusive side. I wish we could have seen a little more of Yul's strategic side that we saw back in Season 2. Even early in Season 3, we still saw a bit of Yul's strategic side when he was debating with Gret about voting for Miriam. But by the time episode 12 rolled around, we just got Yul making an unrealistic request for a Greek balsamic salad. Don't get me wrong, Yul was a bit entertaining for a while. But after a while, the luster was lost and I was just waiting for the day that he would get his comeuppance. Sorry to all the hardcore Yul fans, but it just got old to me. And I feel like others might feel the same about other one-note characters. It's nice to know when a character has a trait that makes them likable, and I'm not saying that characters should lose these likable traits just for the sake of change. But if a positive change can be made, I feel like it reduces the possibility of the character's entertainment becoming stale. We shouldn't be afraid to try something new once in a while, unless there are clear signs that the something new is dangerous. But in this context, trying something new isn't something bad in my eyes. And I could say the exact same thing for the next item on this list. The fourth thing that I think fan seasons should avoid is creating characters that are direct spoofs of people who already exist in real life. Now, I'm not saying that character archetypes should be avoided. Character archetypes like the cowgirl, the influencer, the nerd, and the gentle giant are perfectly fine, since each of those archetypes has room for the showrunners to make them unique through their behaviors and backstories. What I'm talking about are characters that are clearly based on one person in pop culture. An example of such would be Sugar from Total Drama, who seems to be based on Alana Thompson, also known as Honey Boo Boo. The reason why I tend to be averse to making these kinds of characters is because I feel like it ends up being a missed opportunity for creativity. I may not have made a fan season before, but I've written stories, and one of my favorite parts about writing stories is being able to create my own characters and then build them from the ground up to make them unique in their own way. It's that expression of creativity that makes me love creating content. To me, creating your own original characters is your chance to show your audience your creativity, and I don't feel like this is as clear when using direct spoofs of known people rather than regular original characters. Now, I'm not saying that characters that are directly based on one person in pop culture are bad. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that for me, if I had to choose between spoofing a character from pop culture and creating my own character of an archetype, I'd choose the latter option. It's just a preference at the end of the day, and I wouldn't hold it against anyone if they enjoy seeing these kinds of characters. But hopefully the last item on this list is something that we can all agree on. The fifth thing that I think fan seasons should avoid is cutting the build-up for character storylines. I feel like part of the joy in watching these kinds of shows is watching the characters gradually progress over the course of the series. We saw the joy in the community when watching Alec and Fiore's father-daughter bond progress in Season 1, watching Lake slowly realizing that she needs to be her own person in Season 2, and watching Gret finally standing up to Yul and dumping him in Season 3. So I feel like cutting that build-up takes away some of the joy from watching fan shows. Having changes to a character's demeanor or motivations may not be as easily accepted or understood if the change happens too abruptly or if the build-up to the change isn't as extensive as it needs to be. For example, I feel like a part of the reason why there's a vocal part of the community who doesn't like Rhea is because her change into being a villain wasn't as spread out as it could have been. Between Connor's elimination in Episode 3 and Rhea's decision to let Lake be eliminated in Episode 8, Rhea didn't do much aside from sending Yul to the other team and becoming friends with Rosa. To help with the build-up to Rhea's change into a villain, I think it would have been good to see a few more events fueling Rhea's insecurity and having Rhea make more semi-villainous moves. For example, Episode 5 could have Rhea capitalizing on the fact that Hunter didn't want to talk to Tess and Ali. Rhea could use this separation to try and split up the poly trio, giving her and Rosa a bit more room to work with on their team. For Episode 7, perhaps there could be some scenes where Rhea tries to talk to other campers in the competition, but she finds herself being left out. James and Aiden could be filming a TikTok, Hunter, Ali, and Tess could be playing games, and Lake and Rosa could be having a conversation with inside jokes that only they understand. This exclusion could cause Rhea to feel unwanted, prompting her to take a more active role in splitting up these relationships, starting with the poly trio. Adding these little events could have helped Rhea's storyline from feeling a bit rushed and out of character, according to some in the community. This is just one example of how important it is to have the proper amount of build-up for a character storyline in order for the payoff to be satisfying to the viewers. Again, I want to reiterate that the items on this list are not objectively bad. I would just want to avoid them when possible. And I also want to reiterate that any fan show that has these items is not inherently bad. There's a lot that goes into making a good show, from the writing to the characters to the visuals to the soundtrack. I didn't make this video to call out bad writing or bad writers because I know how hard it can be to write a compelling story. The overarching point that I want to make with this video is that it takes a lot of work to make a really good show, and there are a lot of pitfalls to navigate around when making a show. And if I ever make my own fan season one day, I will do my best to avoid these pitfalls. And that about does it for this video. What did you think of the video? Do you agree with my thoughts on these concepts? Do you disagree? What aspects of fan shows are you not a fan of? Either way, please let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. Thank you very much for watching. Click like if you like the video, click subscribe if you really like the video, and for some ending words of wisdom. Don't brush off interview questions so quickly, because your lack of an answer could be the reason why you die in a virtual reality game. Thank you, and farewell.